Well, welcome to PACA 2 tonight. We're going to take a little switch because we're going to the field part of our sport for track and field. And so we have world-renowned jump coach here, Travis Geopfert, who is actually leading one of the top collegiate teams along with two of our top professional athletes and has some interesting sidelights that way. Andy is a first time, or not first time head coach, but head coach of a major university first time. And I know some of you on here have been interested in knowing what head coaches are looking for as far as hiring assistants. So we can delve into that too. For those of you that aren't familiar with Travis, he's primarily, was a decathlete, I believe, as an athlete. And
Yep.
has coached at Central Missouri, at Northern Iowa, Arkansas, Tennessee, back to Arkansas, where he was four times the national assistant coach of the year by the Coaches Association. And then last year was your first year, right, at Kansas State?
Yep.
And
Yep.
took over for another field event guru, Cliff Ravelto at Kansas State. And so now he's driving the ship there at the mighty Manhattan, Kansas. So, Travis, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks. That's a great introduction. We like to call it Manhappiness around here. So,
Well, I was there, I think twice, and that was a long time ago. So I'm sure things have changed. So that's great, though. But as you went into Kansas State, and again, like I say, Cliff had built that into a pretty respectable program, to say the least. What
yeah.
was it like now for you to go in, and what kind of culture were you trying to, or are trying to develop there?
Yeah. Well, you're right. Like Cliff's a mentor of mine, and I've learned so much from him over the years. And he laid an unbelievably good foundation. And so the facilities, what's really cool, and it had been '06 prior to me taking the job. Before coming up on the interview, I hadn't been in Manhattan since '06, the Thorpe Cup, when they hosted back then. And so it had changed a lot. And from a facility standpoint, I know Cliff pushed for a long, long time, and he got a lot of things done, especially in the last couple of years. And so the indoor track is just phenomenal. And the proximity with the indoor track and the outdoor track, and then we have a perfectly level grass field directly adjacent to that in the weight room, incline, decline ramps,
Oh,
med ball
wow.
walls, 40-meter sand pit. Like Cliff built a training palace. And so now we're just trying to expand on that, and we're recruiting like crazy and just trying to coach these kids up as best we can, and trying to we're obviously field events centric, but we have a lot of other good events too, and just trying to create a more well-rounded program, and trying to compete within the Big 12. So
This is true. And I just got a text from your young protege who our surprise guests are going to be hopefully Tara Davis Woodall and Hunter. She says they're still in meetings and she's going to try to join here as time goes on. So we'll see. I'll still keep her on the line as we can. But what's it been like? Let's switch to that. What's it been like coaching married couple like Travis and Tara?
yeah, yeah. They Hunter and Tara are they're. You know what's really cool about them? I'm going to start with this. I know they're and I think in a lot of ways they're celebrities now. And but they talk the talk, but they walk the walk, and they are great people. Like they are genuinely caring, really good people. And so I think just surrounding yourself with people like that is just I feel extremely fortunate with that. I love those guys, and they're awesome to work with. They there's challenges as a married couple on occasion. There's no doubt about that. But they are awesome to work with. But after Paris, and I've said this before, and I didn't expect it. Like we went into Paris expecting to win, and I just didn't fully comprehend how monumentally life-changing it would be, because coming out of that, it has been insane. And managing their training while they have the iron is hot, and capitalizing on all the opportunities has been a challenge. And so I'm really proud of both of them. Hunter had two personal bests this year, dipped under 46 seconds for the first time in his entire career, twice this last year. And in Tara to just create this unbelievable consistency and have a even marginally better year this year than she did last year, which is incredible. I mean, she jumped over seven, except for a short approach opener, she jumped over 7 meters in every single competition. And
Wow.
to manage the lifestyle and to still have that level of success, it's not easy, but I applaud both of them.
How did you, I mean, I know Hunter was there at Arkansas, but as a quarter miler, were you coaching him there?
Yeah, post collegiately. So I recruited Hunter out of high school, and then I went to Tennessee briefly, and then when I came back, um, I started coaching him again, and
Okay.
then that's when he asked me, because I'd had the rule for a long time, like unless I coached you in college, I won't coach you post collegiately, and then I broke that rule with Tara, and then we've had a couple others since, but and I'm like, for Hunter, for you, man, like absolutely. And then it's been awesome, with Tara ever since. And it's been, I guess, 4 years now. And I know I'm old enough to be her dad, but I think of her like a little sister. And it's a unique relationship, and that I really care about these two. Um, but they still listen to me as their coach too, and so it's working.
Right. Well, that's for sure. Yeah, she's like an Energizer bunny. I said, in being around her, it's just nonstop action. Does she ever wear down or slow down, I should say?
No, she does. And that's what like people don't fully understand. Like her favorite thing is probably just to be at home with her with her two dogs and
Yeah,
relaxing a little bit. Um yeah, she does. She does. She needs her quiet time like everybody else.
sure.
Yep.
Definitely. Well, that is great. Well, how do you transition, or how about what kind of pro group do you have now? How many athletes are in your prof professional group?
Yeah, so we have six now. And Wayne and Jaden, who we talked about a little bit earlier, Romaine in the high jump, and Hunter and Tara, and Stefan McCarter. So it's
Okay.
a Yeah, so it's a good group. Akila Jones is here training with us now too, just kind of getting started, getting back into things a little bit again. So I guess seven. Um, yeah, so
Well,
it's a good
excellent.
group.
I'm
Yeah,
glad to see her back on the scene. Because I didn't know what last I saw her, she was painting hats there in Barbados. So this is
yeah.
exciting that she's back. And you've got the UT connection there with Stefan too, then. So
Yeah, yeah. Stefan was looking for a place, and him and Tara have been friends for a long
right.
time, and he's a good dude. He's a good dude. He's a little injured last year, and but he's training really well this year, and so he's actually going to get after it this indoor season. We're not going to wait. Like he's going to see what he can do. So
Excellent. Excellent. Well,
yeah.
how, again, as to what would you say your general coaching philosophy is now at Kansas State?
Well, it's been a change for me, but a welcome change. It was difficult in Paris last year. I had 9 athletes that I was coaching in Paris, and I didn't have any assistant coaches, you know?
Hmm.
And so now I do. And these assistant coaches are great. Like it's really, really fun for me to just like I do a lot on the front side, and the planning, the programming, and all that stuff. But I got a team of people with me that I have 3 screens up in my office. We're all sitting around a computer together, and surrounded by some younger people that are really, really sharp. And so I think the challenge for me has been letting go of the reins a little bit and just trusting other people to do their job. And I feel like I've been able to do that. and these coaches are just doing a phenomenal job. Like they're brilliant. They're students of their craft, and not I call 30 years old young, I guess, but it's not. I guess it's not that terribly young. But they just an unbelievable work ethic, and I really find that I don't know if refreshing's the word, but like when you get young people that really want to work, it's pretty awesome.
That
So.
is good. That is good. Now, you said, and let's maybe shift into the coaching or the head coach, assistant coach, because I know some of the coaches here on the call have expressed interest in this before about what were you looking for when you went there, as an for assistant coaches? What were some of the things you were looking for?
Well, there is some truth to the adage of about who you know type of thing, and so for the most part, the people on our staff, I've been coached by them, with Kip Janvrin. I've coached with them, with John Newell, or I've coached them. And so there was a lot of that, with Clive Poland and Matt Clark. And then I also hired Kate Bucknam, but I've known Kate since she was 5, Bucky's daughter. And so I've known her forever. Trey Brokaw, coached in Northern Iowa. So there was some connections there. I didn't coach with him directly, but connections and knew him pretty well. The only one I didn't know was Chris Goodwin, and Chris is 26 years old, and he was a GA for Kip Janvrin at Central Missouri. And so well, first when Kip said he was in, because I'm like, Kip, this stuff moves fast. Like, you in or you out? And he's like, I'm in. I'm like, no way.
That is
I'm
something.
like, I'm like, all right. And then for the history of many of you that don't know, I'm sure Kip is very much a mentor of mine. He was an Olympic decathlete in 2000. Um, Coached at Central Missouri for 30 some years, tons of opportunities. Stayed at Central Missouri and raised his family there. And his dad was my high school track coach, and so just a ton of history. And I've looked up to Kip since I can remember. And so to have him come on board has just been phenomenal. But Kip, I had one more position left open, and Kip's like, Travis, you got to hire Chris Goodwin, GA for me. And he literally said this because I was a GA for Kip back in the day.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, Travis, he's you, only smarter. And I'm like, I'm sold. So he is that guy. He is sharp as a tack, man. And so but not to ramble too much more, Sue, but a couple of things, people that aren't afraid of hard work. Because in our profession, like if you're not willing to go out there and pull the weeds in the long jump pit and just do the things that aren't glamorous, then it's a short-lived career, in my opinion,
For
you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
And so all these people work and work really hard. They're all very knowledgeable and humble at the same time that want to continue to develop and continue to learn and hone their craft. And then lastly, and it's just the truth of what it is, they're all tenacious recruiters. Like they recruit and have the ability to recruit, are personable, can talk to people. And if you can't recruit in this profession, you're gonna have a hard time. So they all get after it.
Well, you say you're going to be primarily field event dominant, shall we say? And are you finding with the climate of the NC2A now and the scholarship and roster sizes and all that, that you tend to have to go a specific area, or is that just the area you're more comfortable in?
Well, we want to build on our strengths, and so we've had a lot of success in the field events, but we're gonna have two really good 4x4s. Our women's cross country team has gotten significantly better
Hmm.
this last year. We got 400 hurdlers. I mean, I think it's very realistic for us to have a couple of women that could maybe. They know run 55, have run 55 already, and could definitely run faster into 400 hurdles this next year. And so, um, we got throwers. The only thing that really gives in our program is the short sprints. We're not investing a lot of money in the short sprints. It's one of those things. I think every program, and maybe this will change as the rules continue to evolve, but I think in most programs something's got to give,
Yeah.
you know? And so for us, that's kind of where it's at. But I think we we have a field event dominant team. There's no doubt about it. But we want to be diverse enough to go after conference championships. Like that's fun. And you have to have a more diverse team to do that. And maybe it's the way I was brought up in the coaching ranks, but we want to have a team. And it was great. Our entire staff went over to the conference cross country meet, Big 12s. Like we have a team. We
That's
have a real team. And so other than the short sprints, although we got some really fast long jumpers on both sides, we might be able to put a 4x1 together. So we'll
there you
see.
go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I saw that roster when you guys posted the recruits and you mentioned recruiting. I'm like, my gosh, you guys are all over the place with that. So, would you say
Yeah.
that the recruiting strength, how does a coach that is interviewing with you, how do they show or commit to you that they are a good recruiter?
Well, I think you got to be able to have, knowledge of your event area. You got to be able to speak intelligently, and we there's not a lot of glitz and glamour to our recruiting. Like we don't bring them in on football weekends. We do, come in Sunday night, Monday visits, leave on Tuesday.
Oh,
We talk about training. We show them a normal day in the life, and we tell them how we're going to develop them as student athletes. And so I think just being able to effectively communicate is number one. Um, and then just knowing what you're talking about. Like there's no like a lot of programs put cakes in the hotel rooms and names on stuff and we do have a photo shoot which is cool for the kids, but um yeah, it's just I like to call it old school. We're trying to bring old school track back, like focus on the meat and potatoes of what we do, and we're really finding that the athletes and the parents are liking it. I mean, we got
yeah.
a couple more commitments that are coming in tonight that I guess I can't say names yet and all that
Oh,
stuff, but
don't get
some heavily recruited athletes that just want to be good. They just want to be good. And that's
excellent.
so yeah.
That is so. Is the resume important, or just mostly who you know that can then get you in the door, so to speak?
Well, who helps, and that helps. But the resume, yeah, absolutely is important. Like, can you develop people? I very much cut my teeth at Central Missouri and Northern Iowa, and we had a top 10 program at Northern Iowa with a couple international kids, but predominantly Iowa kids that we developed. And I think that time for me as a coach was invaluable. In that, you take a 22-foot long jumper and turn him into a 790 into a 26-foot guy, and so we did, you know, 6'8" high jumpers that jumped 7'3", 48-second quarter milers that ran 304 in the 4x4. We had to learn how to coach. So you definitely want to look for that and people that know how to communicate. There's to me there's the scientific side of coaching and then there's the artistic side of coaching. And I believe it's 50-50. I really do. And so there's a lot of coaches out there like this is what the book says, this is the program, this is what we do. But but how you can make that relate to a large group of people, there have to be some subtle nuances to it. And so how can you effectively communicate to these kids what you want them to do and if we have 6 reps of 90-meter ins and outs, and I know I'm going to get Tara through 4, I'm just going to be happy with 4. and I'm not gonna fight that battle per se. And so, and some people look at that differently, but there's other kids that they need to grind a little bit more. Like, no, you got to get through 6. Like and so you got to find that artistic side and be able to implement it on a daily basis.
Well, and I'm hearing coach the athlete, not the event, which I
Yeah.
think is, a very important concept too. That, like you say, people get all hung up in the science part and forget that we're dealing with human beings and everybody has uniquenesses while you're still following the scientific part. Definitely. How would
Yep.
you, what kind of training is your philosophy here during the fall as you're preparing now? Is there getting ready to go to the infamous holiday break, which seems to be sometimes the kiss of death with the college program?
Yeah. So we have a pretty extensive general prep cycle. So we go 2 4 week cycles, 3 weeks on, 1 week recovery, 3 weeks on, 1 week recovery, and we get in shape. I mean, we do even with the jumpers, with everybody, we do tempo work, obviously shorter acceleration type stuff. We do rudimentary hops, we do hills, we do all the basic general prep type of stuff that you do, and we build a lot of fun around it though in our testing weeks, and we have team concepts. We do basically what would be the quad test. Um, but then we're for all the jumpers, but then we mix it up a little bit. We have a 500-meter time trial. We incorporated the 6K and the 8K of our cross country runners' best times, and then we divide up teams into purple and white and keep a running total of all of it. And big celebration. The white team won this year, and so the kids talking a lot of smack and all that stuff. But everybody's involved. I think it creates a really, really good team atmosphere. And these kids want to work for themselves as individuals, but they want to work for each other too. And so we do that, and then we're in, I guess we'd call our special prep cycle now. And we go through a pretty heavy cycle in the weight room in this cycle. So we get pretty heavy, but it's the only time of the year like we're lifting heavy. So we're trying to be real careful on the track right now, and how we pair stuff up, on a day that we have a heavy squat in the weight room and all that stuff. So then we'll have basically a 10-day holiday break. And I'm not too worried about this group of kids. They need to maintain over the holiday break, but I think they're really, really motivated. And so then we'll get into our pre-competition cycle. And in that, like, we take that a little bit deeper, I think, than most programs into January. Like, we're still really training until the end of January. And we don't really think of our season as starting until that last weekend of January. So,
Yeah, that is different.
yep, it
Interesting.
is. Yep.
What testing do you do? Do you have special routine that you follow?
Yeah, so we'll do after the general prep one, we'll do overhead back and standing long jump, for sure. Then after general prep two, we do uh overhead back again. It's great because the throwers are involved and all that stuff. The throwers do uh they rep out what they can do for 10 reps on the squat. It's pretty crazy. So they do that in the weight room. But then the jumpers, we do a standing triple jump, and then we do from 3 point start a 20-meter acceleration. We don't take it to 30 yet. We do a 20-meter acceleration. Um, yeah, so those are the main tests we do. The long sprinters do that 500-meter, like I said, and then after we get through this next cycle, we'll do a 5 bound test, an old kind of Dick Booth special, and then we'll do a 6 step running 5 bound eventually, and we got some data on all that stuff, and then we do vertical for the high jump. Although I don't think that means a whole lot, but um, yeah. So just basic power testing stuff, and
Yeah.
we will go heavy. We'll get clean maxes in this cycle and all that. But the numbers, what's really fun is I think it's my 24th year of coaching, and I have the testing for 23 years. And so
Wow.
they get to compare it to all those, athletes that have, won medals and won NCAA titles and all that stuff. So, oh, what did Jaden do as a freshman? Well, here it is. So
Yeah,
it's pretty
that's
cool for
really
him to
great.
compare. Yep.
So through all the moves, the statistics followed.
They did. I'm just so happy. I backed up. I'm so paranoid about backing up my computer. But yeah, we kept them all.
That's great. What kind of
Hmm.
are you in charge of the strength program, or do you have to work with a strength coach, or how's that go?
No, it's pretty awesome. So I give all the credit to Matt Clark. Um, He's a brilliant mind. I coached Matt at Northern Iowa. He was a decathlete for us. And then when I moved to Arkansas in '09, he came down 1 year later to train as a decathlete. He was making ends meet as a personal trainer. And I think like every track coach does, had butted heads with the strength coach there at the time. And finally came in. I'm like, hey, this is the program. Because I used to write our strength training at Northern Iowa. And I'm like, this is the program. I want you to implement this. And that's it. Well, that didn't go well with the strength coach. We had a falling out. And then we needed to hire a strength coach. And Buck and I, over a couple cans of cold clarity, decided to call Matt Clark. And I'm like, Matt, do you have your CSCS? And he's like, no. And I go, can you get it? And
Quick.
we we hired him as like a partial earnings coach for the men's track team. And anyway, he came on board, and then I said, here's basically the training you did in college. Put your own spin on it, but for the most part, we want to do this. And it was about 3 weeks into it. I'm like, dude, you are sharp. And he has been running with it ever since. So 10 years at Arkansas, we coached together and really synced up the weight room and the track. And so we call it, synergy on that. And then, he was one of my first hires. So he's actually our sprints coach. And he is our sprints coach, and but still writes all of our strength and conditioning training. And he's a brilliant, brilliant mind. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good switch then, because like you mentioned, a lot of times the track and field coaches and the strength coaches butt heads, and that does become a problem. So that's good to hear. What is how do you deal with multi-events as far as does one person control the combined events? I mean, the deck and the hep, does one person control that or set that up, or do you have each event coach work with them?
No, one person controls it. So, um, you know, I coached I was a decathlete myself and coached the decks and heps, for years, and hired my mentor in Kip Jambrin. And so just like all of us, Kip and I collaborate and when we write the programming and just kind of hash stuff out, and it's all based around quality 400-meter training. Kip and I both very much have the same philosophy. Um, uh, Sorry, I got distracted. This strength coach thing is so real, isn't it?
Yeah, you're reading the chat too.
Oh, I am. I am. But it's based around quality 400-meter training, and Kip then implements it, and he wants to be at the track all day, and he is. So we got a couple different groups kind of based on their more their age really. And he's at the track all day long, and then I bounce around, and I get there when I can and help with certain things. And the throws can be a grind with combined event athletes, and he's putting a ton of time in. And then I help a little bit more with the jumps. And but man, these kids are developing. Like, it's Kip's doing an unbelievably good job. Like, there's a kid from Dorian Charles, from Trinidad, and redshirt freshman decathlete, and this dude couldn't. I mean, he probably jumped 320 in the vault, and he's jumping at bungees at 470 yesterday. I'm like, this is
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
exciting.
and
That's
it's pretty cool.
Where does
Mm.
speed fit in your training program as far as time of the year and so on?
Yeah, so we try to do a good job, and this is where I think our coaches are doing a good job in pushing me out of my comfort zone and just making sure that we make the athletes a little more durable earlier if we can. So I've always been an advocate of acceleration. Like, acceleration to me is like a golf swing. Like, you can hit it a simulator during the winter, It's like you can always take a golf swing, right? And so you can always accelerate. So we're always doing acceleration from day one. Now, I'm a little conservative with it. I cap it at 10 meters through the first general prep, then we go 15 meters in the first 2 weeks of general prep two, and then 20 meters. And then now we're kind of getting out where we'll do 30 meters, or what I call a lot of 20-10-10s of 20-meter acceleration, 10-meter transition up, 10 meters turnover. But what we have done this year better, I think, than past years, and this is our coaches pushing me. We do wickets on tempo days. So we have wickets on Mondays and Thursdays to kind of finish our warm up. And I've really have enjoyed that a lot. And then as we get into pre-competition cycle, and then it'll be more in terms of ins and outs and true speed stuff as we get into our pre-competition cycle, which will be December,
Mhm.
going into the indoor season in January. Yeah.
Right, right. How do you peak them for indoors or do you work through indoors?
I mean, I think you kind of look at it like you can write training in any way you want to. So you can have a double peak cycle, which most coaches do, through the NCAA year. You can write training for a single peak cycle, for outdoors. And sometimes coaches talk about alternating that year, year in and year out, double peak, single peak. I like to describe it as we work up towards, 80%, for the indoor season. Like we're not going to the well, win at all costs type of stuff. And so I guess it is a double peak cycle, but and then we taper back down, go back more into a special prep type of cycle, then we come back out to finish the outdoor season. I do like the way we do it. There's one thing that I'm pretty proud of, is that when you look at even our NCAA athletes, when they've gotten to global competition in the end of the summer, they're performing really well. Like they are not like I mean, they're winning medals after NCAA seasons and having personal records,
That's something.
Yeah. So I do like every year it's got to be tweaked a little bit differently and depending on the athlete and yeah, a lot of it depends on the athlete, but for the most part, we kind of work up to what I'm going to call 80% range, and we're going to try to do as good as we can indoors, but then we hit it hard and go into holding I guess a long holding a peak is an interesting term. Like if you do things right, like you can manage having an NCAA championships, a US championships, and then cycle into the Olympic Games or the World Championships. So, and a lot of those athletes have had you know
It's
PRs or close to
yeah.
PRs at the end of the summer. So
Well,
yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah, is that, this year was so weird with it being September. And,
yeah,
and there were a few college athletes that did well in Tokyo, but I think primarily a lot of I don't know if, they shut down or whether it was just the professional that didn't have to peak for NCs if they kind of just came through planning for the later time.
yeah,
So that was an abnormal schedule for sure. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
The one thing too, like you gotta manage competitions. When you look at I mean, I should know exactly, but I'm trying to think like Wayne Pinnock, when he won the silver in Budapest, out of 32 athletes went to Budapest, and he jumped 8:52 there, and which was a personal record. Out of the 32 athletes, he's actually the only athlete that had a personal best in that competition in the men's long jump. And but I think we had a qualifier the last weekend in January, didn't jump again until conference, and then definitely didn't take all of his jumps, jumped at nationals. So there's, three indoor meets, and then outdoors, we're not going to open up until the end of April. I think he went out, and that year, I think we went to Long Beach. He jumped 790 something on the first attempt, shut it down, got his qualifier. And then it was repeat. Like, so, for conference and regionals and nationals. And so it was just pretty um um limited. and we just didn't overcompete him, kept a big picture in mind. And I think that that's part of it to try to have a deep run into the summer.
And was that your plan then, like to go in and just take a certain number of jumps or try to get the standard and then stop so that you weren't maxing 6 jumps every meet?
Yes. And we've done that historically. We've done that. I mean, shoot, Jarian back in 2014 as a sophomore and jumps 790 at Texas A&M in the conference meet, and he was pissed because he was 1 centimeter behind his teammate. And I'm like, dude, we're done. Like, we're good. We got other stuff to do. We're moving on. So that part's tough. You got to have athletes that
Yeah.
really trust you and can and have the ability to have a bigger picture in mind. So,
And is
yeah.
again, how do you develop that? Or is that something you just talk about all year so that when that big moment comes, you're not trying to sell them on that at the moment?
Yeah, there's a plan going into it, we talked about with Hibby a lot, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah. And but then that emotional control in the
Yeah,
moment is what's hard. And I'm guilty sometimes too. I'm like, yeah,
I know
we'll take
you get excited.
we'll
It's
take one more. So,
one more will do it, and then boom, that's when we don't.
oh, I
So
know.
that's
Mhm.
definitely the catch on that. What would you say if the kid, you're going through the training and all that, and mid-season and you're getting close to conference and things aren't looking as well as what you'd planned? How do you snap them out of that slump if you can?
Well, there's there's
Prayers?
one thing like if you have an impromptu testing or whatever it may be. Yeah, there's no athletes on here, right? Just all coaches.
Correct.
Oh, all
Correct.
right. I'm always the one holding the tape measure. Always. And I know what the actual bar height is in the high jump. Like that sometimes that just little mental breakthrough is all they need. You know?
That is
So,
very, very true. And I do that too. I'll
yep.
even get to a point where I will tape the high jump standards so they don't see the marks because they'll get off the pit and look at the standard as they're getting off the mat. I mean,
Yep.
and as a result, then they're like, well, you lied. That was 6'2" and not 6'4" or whatever, and I'm like, come on. So
Yep. I,
definitely.
I'll I'll take you one further, Sue. I'll go out there early and I'll touch adjust the top part, the pegs, and
Oh, yeah,
so it reads like it's 6'4", and I know it's 6'2", and it's awesome. Yeah.
we're so nice. But that's like you say, that's what you got to do sometimes. What are
hmm
your go-tos for recovery after workouts or after a meet?
Yeah. So just you got to have movement, We do there's just different recovery mobility routines that we do, and I'm a big advocate of anything, hydrotherapy, getting in water. Like I'm just a huge like just go move in a swimming pool. I really think that's important. So, no, I don't think it's anything too terribly crazy, but those are the main things we go to. We have a recovery lift that Matt Clark implements, but it is mostly just mobility movement stuff. So yeah.
Okay, good. In the chat there, if you're seeing it, or Frankie, do you want to come online? I mean, go on mute and ask your question because I think that's a good segue there for us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Hello, I'm Frankie. So I had a couple questions. I was kind of listening over to as to how to kind of break into or get a new position potentially. And one of the things that was mentioned was that there's kind of like an inner circle of you kind of have to know someone, or that kind of plays a big role into getting your position. So one question, this is the first part of the question is how do you get into that inner circle so that you kind of get to know more coaches? And the second one is if, for example, if the know-how or if you know someone, what role does coaching education actually play a role into everything?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing when I was young, I really I appreciate a lot of terrific mentorship. I would actually go to And this was, the late 90s, early 2000s. And well, shoot, even today, I still do it. Like, I'll go strike up conversations. I would go find the best athlete at the NCAA championships, the US championships, shoot the Olympic Games. And I would go sit behind the coach that that athlete was talking to, and I would listen and try to pick up what I could. And then afterwards, if the coach was kind enough, I would just strike up a conversation. And so I think just doing that and striking up conversations with coaches that have been there and done it is invaluable. Cliff Rivelto, he was a coach of the Thorpe Cup when I was getting into it in '03, and stayed up until 5 in the morning one time just talking track and field. He helped me immensely. Randy Huntington, I didn't know Randy from anybody, and was sitting next to a bench, Mike Powell's coach, and just struck up a conversation. Dude, you name it. And just legendary coaches, Dick Booth, Raina Ryder, Jeremy Fisher, a lot of old decathlon coaches, and Bill Webb, and so just really just striking up conversations. And I appreciate young people, younger coaches now, or any coaches that just want to reach out and have conversations. And I've had a number of coaches just ask for advice. And I'm very willing to give it because a lot of people did it for me, And yeah, so yeah. Yeah. And the second, I can't remember the second part of your question. I'm sorry. I started yapping there. So.
I think what part does coach's ed play in if it's knowing people? Why should you go to coach's ed stuff?
I think coach's ed is good, and you don't have to like take what a coach says and do it verbatim. The way I think of coach's ed is you go in, and I still like to go to coach's ed stuff, and I think you pick the dude. I'll go listen to Boo anytime, any day of the week,
Yeah.
and I think you pick up snippets of something that they do that, like, oh, I think that'll fit well within my program. Like, oh, that'd be really good on Monday. Instead of me just doing straight 150s, I'm going to do some ins and outs. I'm going to do a little speed play with it, And so I didn't really change our programming because we've had a lot of success with it, but can we make small layers that make it a little bit better? Yeah, like it can always be better. So, yep.
Does that help, Frankie? Yeah.
Yes, it does. So just real quick, if so, I think where I'm at, I'm kind of in a fork in the road where, so I've been coaching JC for 8 years. I did a grad assistantship, and I had success pretty much at every level. So I think like 10 years total in the collegiate system. But I'm having a really hard time breaking into like the NCAA system. And so kind of where sitting behind the coaches and reaching out to coaches is something I've done since PACA started, or even before that, because that was one of the best advice. I think I got some of the best connections and made amazing friends through just emailing, sending messages through like a messenger or social media, whatever. But besides, like, obviously, like, making those contacts during the meets, um, so looking at potential other positions like volunteer work, trying to break into it through GA position, volunteer work. And ultimately, like, the way I'm looking at it is, how do I balance out, since it's JC work, at least in California, our main like income comes from like teaching classes. So if I go
Yeah.
volunteer at, like, I don't know, university of wherever across country, like, I'd have to find a brand new job, like probably doing minimum wage stuff, or even up north or down south, they'd be the same thing. So I'd have to cut all my income altogether to essentially go on like the dream of, hey, can I make it?
Yeah.
And so kind of like that would be my question, is that since I'm kind of faced with that reality, hey, if I'm going to go into the next phase, or should I go to the next phase, how do I go about that, since I'm at the junior college level and the main occupation has been like teaching, since that's how we kind of like make our money. But I do definitely want to start to kind of explore going into the NCAA system, is kind of biting the bullet and trying to just get like a part-time position at like a Dick's Sporting Goods, going to be my route. And then, like, have to eat ramen for, a year or 6 months and then hopefully I make it, or is there a better way to kind of go about that?
Yeah. I don't know. I admittedly I was so fortunate to get a full-time, gig when I was young, right out of grad school. Um I don't know, especially with where you're at in the California junior college system. I mean, do you feel like do you get opportunities to connect with other coaches? I know because you have your own JC system out there, and so do you get many opportunities to here's what I'm really getting at. Like in recruiting, I'm looking at coaches that are a thorn in my side. Like this guy is relentless. Like he's doing something right and he's developing them. You know what I mean? So I don't know how much like head to head you get to just make your impact that way or not, because I'm not familiar with the JC system out there, you know? So
So we're able to, so we compete against everyone. We're going against the NCAA D1s. So for myself, I work as an assistant cross country coach, throws coach, and I handle strength and conditioning as well. So I'm doing everything. I have my private coaching stuff. I have a social media set up for the throws. I have social media set up for myself, YouTube. Um, I've done USATF level 1 and 2. I've done USA weightlifting level 1 and 2. I have a master's in exercise science. I graduated with honors. Like there's
yeah,
the list goes on and on and on and on. So that's kind of why I also asked about the coaching education. I reached out to one of the coaches that I look up to, and I kind of mentioned some of my education as kind of like, hey, like for myself, I'm trying to make that jump. And I didn't come from the NCAA Division One. I did D2, NEIA, JUCO. So kind of breaking into that is a little bit more, I would say, kind of how you mentioned, like you have to know someone that maybe knows someone.
yeah,
And I've had really great mentors in the throws. Like I'm on the West Coast, so I've had some of the best guys that I work with, some even the world record holders that you mentioned, and I learned immense amount of information. I go to every single clinic I can possibly afford because we don't make a ton of money, but anything that I can afford, my savings would go into clinics or certifications because we don't get any kind of stipends for attending like world conferences or anything like that. So anything that I could kind of like spare is going directly into like coaching education or clinics that I can kind of like
yeah,
muster up. So that's
yeah,
kind of like where my question is, like if I'm trying to break into, and you mentioned you were very fortunate to get those full-time positions. And I know like Sue had actually mentioned this last time, kind of like the field events are kind of getting, dying a little bit, especially in the throw side. Some of the bigger programs, with that hurdle kind of presenting itself, um, is like, for example, like if I were to try and get hired at K-State, what would distinguish myself or help distinguish myself having like on my resume, or if you didn't know me completely, like I'm trying to break into that system. I don't have a graduate assistant at Division 1, but I'm trying to break into that. Would it be
yeah,
potentially, going into again being a junior, a GA, and thinking about, hey, now I'm trying to get a GA position at a Division 1, or Division 2, or trying to get a head coaching at a Division 3, or maybe move out of the state and just try to mix in with the rest of the country and go to assistant coaching at another junior college. Like what's my best route, I guess.
yeah, yeah. It's hard for me to say. I don't know. I can only speak to what I do know. And so what I would look at in your resume is I'd look at development. These are the athletes I've coached. This is what they came in coaching. This is what they went out coaching. These are the athletes that I've recruited. I think that's what I would look at. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
So the rest of it, man, the route, like everybody's path and route is different. I think I've had former athletes of mine. I'm like, and I've just told them like they've been offered Division 2 jobs or mid-major jobs. I'm like, you take this job, like you take this job, and like And so I think any opportunity you might get at one of those levels and an opportunity to prove yourself, I think would be good. Yeah.
and I think Frankie last week, Vin Lanana was, he was ironically saying the resume was not that important. It was more the experience or, who you knew and stuff like that. So here's kind of a blend of the two answers, as to going through. But I think the reaching out and making yourself known, like we know you, but then expanding out because who's to say JC isn't the best bet? I mean, with NC2A, all these changes going on, I don't know that I would want to be a Division I coach right now, truthfully, with all the craziness that's happening. And like Tracy's saying, as to if you get a job offer, take it, even if you think it is lesser maybe than what you wanted. I mean, when I came to Texas, it was a full-time job. Well, let me start back. I started the program at Arizona State. It was part-time. My salary was $4,000, but it gave me a thing on the resume. And then to go to Texas, I took a $9,000 pay cut off of teaching in California to become a full-time coach because it was that next step. And then I realized that wasn't what I wanted. And so then I went back into teaching and coaching after school. So you've got to just kind of see and sense the mecca, the grass is not always greener, I guess is the thing too, is, don't think Division I is the wonderful, wonderful. Marcia, you're a head coach. What do you think about Frankie's questions?
Um, Hi, Frankie. I'm the head coach at Cal State Bakersfield, so we're familiar with your program. Um, I think a lot of the thing is it's not just necessarily um, that one of the things I hired a really good assistant a couple of years ago, and I didn't know him, but his references were people I knew that I could call
Yeah.
and they shoot straight with me. And the reason I ended up at Cal State Bakersfield is because somebody on my reference was a mentor to our AD at the time. And so a lot of time, and it's not just like somebody you can list as a reference, somebody that is going to go to the mat for you and talk about your character and your work ethic and how you develop athletes, just like what Travis was saying, mention what they came in as. I get so many people that say I coached so and so and he jumped this far or ran this fast, and it's like, yeah, but where was he when you got it?
Exactly.
I'm much more impressed with how somebody brings somebody along, particularly when we're not at a Power 4 school.
Mhm.
You got to get your money's worth out of your assistants, and also in California, I think the JUCO coaches, unless you're at one of the like premier schools, I think you guys make more money than we do.
I was going to
So,
say, yeah.
um, I love my job. I've been blessed my entire life to be a coach. I fell into it by accident because of somebody I knew that wanted to hire me. I was headed to law school. I wasn't even like on this path. So, and it's been the greatest blessing of my life for the last 30 years. So keep the faith and have people in your corner that are just going to go to the mat for you. And like somebody that Travis knows might say, hey, my friend, Frankie is applying for a job at your school, and maybe it's somebody Travis like really knows well and will shoot straight and that kind of, so yeah, it's kind of who you know, but it's also, have those amazing references and talk about what you've done to develop student athletes. Is that good?
Does
Oh
anybody
yeah.
else have something to add at this topic here while we're on it? Let's see. Okay. And again, you guys, if you have questions, please put them in the chat or raise the infamous virtual hand as we go. Travis, how do you work or what kind of component now does mental preparation have in your program?
Oh, a lot, like visualization is a big part of what we do, scenarios, playing through scenarios and the positive self-talk. And, we are fortunate, and I know not everybody has access to this, but we have sports psych people available for us. And Daryl Sullivan is a high jumper I coached at Tennessee, and he gives a lot of credit to the sports psych guy there, and I should know his last name, but I know it was Joe, and just the mental preparation that they did, and Before Daryl attempted that 233 bar for the first time, he had made it in his brain 1,000 times. So, yeah, it's a real part of it. And then the other part too, in this day and age, and I don't need to harp on it too much, but I did bring it up at the team meeting the other day. Like mental health is important in general. And the anxieties and the stressors and all this stuff, and for whatever reasons, we can all name 1,000 of them this day and age, but it's real.
Mhm.
And so I think just being attuned to that and we try hard to make our practice the best part of the kid's day, And so
That's good.
um, yeah, and I think I don't need to preach by any stretch to all these coaches, but I think just awareness of that, we've all had stories and all that stuff, and I've had some too, and just being aware,
Well,
So
that's it. Being there, being aware, like you say, hopefully practice. Well, not that the expense of their whole life, but the practice is a positive, and that
yeah,
they're there and enjoy it, that type of thing. So, well, good.
yep.
Well, let's shift a minute here to long jump. So, longer triple, let's put it that way. How do you set up the approach? What is your philosophy on that?
Oh, we build the approach around however the athlete innately develops their own rhythm, which is contradictory to what some coaches out there say. And I've learned a ton from Boo, but Boo will tell you it is a standing start, hinge movement. That's the way you have to do it. And we have some that do that, of course. Um, uh, uh, Thanks, Joy. There's been some legendary coaches. We've all learned from somebody, that's for sure.
Yes.
Um, but I like to just see how they develop rhythm. And so some of them do a skip in, some of them do a standing start, some of them do a shuffle, some of them doing, whatever it may be. So I start with like, all right, I want you to move into this mark, and then I want you to do just run for 20 meters. And then I just kind of watch how they naturally do it. I'll videotape it. I have kind of marks that I'm referencing or whatever. And so um, even for Daryl, super long story short, Daryl, he jumped 7'4" in high school and then struggled a little bit his first 2 years of college. And I'm like, dude, let me watch your high school jump.
Mm.
And this was his junior year now, when the first year him and I got together. So we went down to the football field. It was right below our office. I'm like, run into the goal line, take an 8-step rhythm approach, and so he did this skip in, right? He did this little skip in and developed rhythm for this 8-step approach, and then it landed on 16 yards. And dude, from that point on, his it was a 17-foot skip into a 48-foot approach, and that was what it was because he could
Yeah.
replicate that easily. And so we're doing it right now. We're developing approaches right now, and I use sidewalk chalk and just make some marks, and I build it on how they do it. And so long story longer, we develop an acceleration pattern with a 6-step push that we mark, and we use a lot of 18-step approaches. So it's a 6-step push. 16-step approaches a lot of times use a 4-step push. And then how can they create a consistent stride pattern for 6 steps? And then I do everything metrically, and then I know if I have an athlete with let's say I have a female with for simple math a 2 meter stride length, max velocity stride length, and I want to take that 2 meters times 8 steps out. So I got to build a mark that has an acceleration into a transition at 8 steps out there at 16 meters, and then I just do the math. So sorry, I rambled a lot there.
No,
Does that make
no,
sense, Sue?
I know Jerome, and I know I'm because Jerome you were 27.9. What was your best? 27.2. Yeah, so Jerome was old, not old, a veteran long jumper, I should say. Uh,
Yeah.
do you do you have a coach's mark? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I catch a 4-step mid. I learned from Reina that 6-step, like visual acuity, like steering for the board, happens a minimum of 6 steps out from the board, which I do believe. Like you got to be upright and sprinting. If you're still driving at that point, you're in trouble. So
Right.
you got to be upright and sprinting, 6 steps out. Actually, more than that, 8 steps out. But that's where the steering starts. So a lot of coaches will have internationally, will have a 6-step mark. I got started with a 4-step mark out. And so like Tara's mark is 850, Jarian's was 975. And so I just use that mark, like I know my numbers that way. And so 4 steps out from the board is the mid mark that I catch. Yep.
Okay. So what difference have you done with made with Tara from her early college or middle college days to now?
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to fix. I mean, she did a lot of good things. There's no doubt.
She
So
didn't do
we
bad.
yeah, yeah. So we just really worked on creating consistency, and it's I don't want to say she's frustrated. She's not by any stretch, but she's hit some known performance indicators that show that she's ready to jump really, really, really far. And so like she's hit KPI for every metric that we measure in long jumping to jump over 750, but she hasn't hit all those KPI at the same time, you
Right,
know? And
right.
so the closest we had to it, and the bummer was at the US Championships this year, and that second jump. You know how the old school plasticine was the rule, now it's break the plane. So by
Yeah,
the old school rule, it definitely would have been a fair jump, right? But it's what it is.
yeah.
And I did, I shouldn't have, but I was able to get the measured foul jump off of that, and she jumped 739. So
Oh,
that
oh,
was a tough that was a tough pill to swallow. So it's there. It's really, really, really there. We just haven't had, other than that particular day, we haven't had these good conditions,
mhm.
and championship jumping's in a stadium and all that stuff, and it's what it is. But I'm excited for some good conditions. I think she's ready to jump really far. My PB is 734, and I'm looking forward to the day when we celebrate her breaking my PR.
There you go. That's a good target, definitely. Now, in the
Yeah.
past few like big meets, she's had some foul issues, but then has been able to kind of pull back and come through, shall we say, like Olympic trials, and then in uh, Times Square a few weeks ago. She was a clutch performer coming in there at the last jump to win it.
Yep.
How do you coach her through those?
Yeah, the foul issues, it's kind of interesting. Like the ones that we remember are the last two US championships, obviously Olympic trials and the US championships this last year. Those are really the only two meets she's had foul issues.
Oh, okay.
But but we all remember them, and they've been stressful, that's for sure. And so the one with the Olympic trials, people don't know it. She had a very small heel fracture a month out from that, and so we had not been able to like put her foot down, and so that was difficult. And then this last year at the U.S. champs, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, like, dude. Like T. And it wasn't, dude, there was no rocket science to it. I'm like, Tara, back up a foot, steer for the back of the board, and jump. Like, don't back off on your approach, run your acceleration pattern, and try to jump from behind the board. And then that's what she did and jumped 690 something and then
There you
went on
go.
from there. But it was just controlling your emotions in the moment, and she flat out got it done. So
It's exciting. She definitely, like I told you, I get gray hair watching her. So and you're
she's
doing it pretty good there with your dark hair. So that's good.
She's a gamer, man. She's a
Yeah,
gamer. Like she's just the ultimate competitor. And that you can't coach that.
no, you got to have that definitely. Jerome, why don't you add in some of your questions here from the chat?
Okay. Let's go with this first, the last question that I just asked. How many days a week do you do approach work? And is one of those days in conjunction with another workout, like a short speed workout, or I see she's dabbling what she wants to dabble in the hurdles this year?
She does, yeah. Yeah. Risk reward, right? Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, my question is, how many days a week? I know you jump once or twice a week. I know you don't jump a lot.
Hmm.
No real coach jumps more than twice a week. But how many days a week do you do just strictly approach work?
Once. Once a
Okay.
week. And it is coupled with the speed day. Yep.
Okay.
It's coupled with whatever our speed workout is that day. And so we do a lot of ins and outs, a lot of sprint float, sprint
Mhm.
type of stuff
Okay.
on approach days. Yep.
Type of thing.
Yep.
And my other question, which I asked earlier, I train two groups too. I have a post-collegiate group and I have a college team.
Hmm.
How hard is it for you to balance the two?
Yeah. It's, you know, it got really hard going into the Olympics
Uh,
when I had a dozen pro athletes, and almost all of them I had, well, really all of them except for Tara I had coached in college. It was tough and it wasn't sustainable. Just because I was at the track all day long. And I know we all are. I was worn out, man. I was tired,
your
and so now I
hurt,
just,
knees hurt.
oh, I was tired. Well, I tell you what, since taking this job, my daily steps have more than cut in half.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I just have unbelievable help. Like we have this amazing system here, and all the coaches are on the same page. I give Clive Pullen a ton of credit. Our assistant coach in the jumps. Chris Goodwin's also an assistant coach in the jumps. Matt Clark writes our strength training and speed development. Kip and the multis, but knows his stuff. Like we are completely interchangeable, and it's to the point where like for all the global championships, I'll always be there. But if Tara's jumping in Rome, or if Romaine's jumping in Rome, or whoever, whatever, and Clive wants to go and needs to go, he can go. And everything's covered there, and everything's covered here. And so, same thing with Goody. I needed help at the World Championships. The long jump and the high jump were at the same time, and I flew Goody over, and he was able to help me cover it. And we're just very interchangeable because we're always all there at practice. So, it's extremely unique, I think, our setup. But I give credit to these assistant coaches, man. They're good and they're smarter than me, so it's great.
Are you coming to New York for USA's indoor?
Yeah, I'll likely be there. Yep,
Be there. Okay.
yep.
Cool.
No,
Thank
Let's
you.
see. Did you have some other
yeah.
ones? Let's see. Some other questions, Jerome? Are you all set?
Yeah.
I gotta butt in, Jerome. My middle name's actually Jerome, and some of my buddies, my high school buddies, and so my wife, she'll call me Jerome when she's mad at me. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's throwing me for a loop. So yeah.
Um, one, what was my other question? Oh, when you start your season out, when you start working on your approach development, I see you say you develop the pattern. Like what I do, tell me if this makes sense. I lay out maybe like 120 feet, and being that we start the season with a shorter approach, we'll go for the triple jumpers, I'll go 14, long jumpers, I go 16. We
Yep.
make that adjustment and then we just develop off over that. Then throughout the year, by the time we get to indoor nationals, they're at 16 steps, but we will never be full approach until we get outside.
Hmm.
That makes sense to you?
Yeah, yeah. So, yep. I mean, that's what we did with Hibby, and just
Okay.
took it slow, and just, yeah, that maximum controllable speed. And so we'll do that. I've done that. Like even Jerry and back in the day in the long jump, we started at 16, we moved to 18, and eventually, like when he got really really good, and I didn't know it. I had to study it. I studied like Powell and Lewis and Pedroso and Saladino, and they were taking 21 or 22, and so we eventually got back to that. But yeah,
My
Uh,
longest was 20. I tried 22, I just couldn't do it. I
yeah,
was
yeah,
10 feet, so I couldn't handle that kind of speed.
yeah. Well, and then when you look at it too, you just look at the metrics, like what works for your acceleration pattern, and like, all right, I'm trying to catch max velocity you know, from 11 to 6, and then from 6 to 1, and does it kind of hover steady in that zone, and then can I catch it? And if 22 you're slowing down, then that's not good. So,
I couldn't exactly. Yep.
yeah,
That that's great. Do you have a favorite drill for the jumps, horizontal jumps?
gallop drill. It's the most specific drill to jumping that you can do. It's the most specific. We start it, dude. It's so funny. I mean, I did it did it this year where we got a lot of younger jumpers and I'm like, hey, you remember grade school when they would teach you how to when they teach you how to ride a pony, and I
Yep,
will
yep.
literally make them put one foot in front of the other and they smack their butt and I do it alongside of them and then that 100% is the progression to jumping. Yeah, the actual jump.
So
Yep.
you have sat with Randy Huntington a while.
Yes, I have.
No, that's what I do too with my high school kids. And yeah, because they don't understand what we went through in kindergarten riding our stick horses. So
Yep.
you definitely
Yep.
have to demo it for them.
I know. It's pretty funny. They always laugh, and the freshmen are always embarrassed, but I actually make them do it. And it
Yeah.
works every time. It
No,
works. Teaches
because
them.
the boys, like you say, high school boys definitely get embarrassed and they, uh, they don't want to do it and look like fools. So we all do it together and
Yep.
figure if I can do it, they can do it. So which would you say is more difficult to coach and why? The long jump or the triple jump?
Oh, I think the triple jump's tougher. I think the sequencing of the arms and the intricate timing of it. I mean, it's difficult, and that's what again I applaud our assistant coaches and Clive has become a true student and studying his craft and so he spends a ton of time with these younger jumpers working just the hop to step from one step and then from two steps. And so I think triple jump's hard because it's time consuming and uh I'll get to that, Jerome. It's time consuming and my ADHD doesn't allow allow for that a ton of time in that two-step range. I want to get back and have some fun, but no, I think the triple jump's harder. And then to answer your question, yeah, we track the volume in terms of number of contacts, and then I try to be aware of how volume and intensity, like where you cross that X at, and so it's tough. But I'll for the rudimentary hops, like we'll hover between 100 and 120 contacts, and some of that stuff, just depending on the intensity. When we get to our bounding routine, a lot of times I'll be in that 60 range. And so I think our volume's probably lower than most. I would guess. I guess I don't know for sure, but I definitely keep track of it. And in terms of measuring the intensity, we just monitor the distance, per contact, and that's how we do it.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, that sounds familiar. We've got another question in the chat about does Matt Clark ever work with masters high jumpers?
Matt Clark can work with anybody he wants to. That guy's brilliant. So shoot, he's 37 years old right now, and he's doing this 500-pound deadlift, break 2 minutes in the 800. Like it's incredible. Like
That
look,
is
you
fun.
follow his Instagram page. It's called Track Strength, and he's he's crushing it. So yeah, yeah, yeah. He might do a side gig. We actually have he's partnered with us too on TrackWired, and we've had a ton of feedback from masters athletes with our TrackWired program.
Yeah.
Just having success with that. So yeah, there's some stuff out there.
Yeah, because it's just track and then wire, right? To
Yep,
all the
TrackWired, one word. Yep,
yes.
yep.
Yeah. I still have my membership.
Thank you.
If you had a message for a high school coach that's working with young jumpers, what would you encourage them to do or not do?
Oh wow. High school coach working with young jumpers. I think helping them find rhythm. I think the approach is the number one factor in jumping, high or far. Help them find some rhythm and help them be, technically proficient in how they move through their takeoff, help them in the triple jump, help them, line up their forces when striking the ground and absorb with the hip, just trying to avoid things that beat these kids up, and along that same notion is like if they're going to lift and do Olympic lifts, make sure they're doing it right,
Yeah,
you know? So,
that's for
yeah,
sure.
a few
That
things.
is for sure. Definitely. Let's see here. How do you deal with agents with your pros? No agents are on this call, I don't believe.
You know, I it's it, in working with agents, like it just as long as everybody's aligned and you have the athlete's best interest at heart, life's good. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so I don't, the athletes, and sometimes you have to as a pro athlete, you got to grind, but it's still got to work around what's right for them in training and training cycles. It can't be this constant money grab, you know? So long story short, you know, from a scheduling perspective, we try to, send me the possible meets that they could go to, the meets you think you can get them into, and then we'll work a training calendar around that, and then make some decisions, you know, in terms of what works, you know, from our training. And so, you know, I am fortunate to coach a couple athletes that don't have to chase the money. They got really good shoe deals, and so they can pick the important meets and all that. But on the flip side of that, there are some athletes that sometimes you just have to grind. And if you can make $5,000 at a meet, you're going to go jump at that meet, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, yeah, it's a delicate balance, and I've been doing it a lot, and um, have there's you know good agents out there and good relationships out there, and my number one thing is are you actually working for the athlete?
There you
And if
go.
you are, life's good. If you're not, then that's when problems arise. So,
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely hear that one. Um,
yeah.
what would you, let me see here. I lost my train of thought. Oh, what has been one of your bigger challenges in your coaching career?
Man, what a great question. So, um, recently, like I can't do it all. Like you gotta trust other people to do their jobs, you know? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and you can't control everything. That's for sure. I'm a type A personality with that, and so you gotta let it go.
So it's like pulling teeth for you to let go.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's just like all of us. You've been doing it for so long, and then, you know, I think, um, I mean, in the moment right now, being a head coach, like I have to let things go, and I like to think I'm doing it successfully, and you know, and our assistant coaches are crushing it, and I want them to crush it, and I want them to have experiences, and even in recruiting, like I have my opinion and my eye on stuff, and but you know what? Like this is how you feel about this one. Like, okay, I support it. You know, I don't necessarily agree, but that's okay. Like, you, I've been wrong before.
You don't
You know.
say, you don't blame them when it doesn't work out. You,
No, you really don't. And that's what like I'm trying to have a good mindset of letting these assistant coaches really grow in their profession and in their sport because that's what people did for me.
yeah.
And I think it's working really, really well. And you know, I think too, like I recognize that these guys are younger, but they are sharp. They are smart. And I think we all put our egos aside that and they see that, you know, Kip or John or myself also have some experience, you know? So
Right, right.
um
It's a nice
yeah. I
uh
think I think I think it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's very good. How have you like your final the taper between like your last few days and then the day of finals? What are some things that you do that you found success at with your jumpers? Prepare
Yeah.
right there at the end.
Three days out is kind of our last training day. 2 days out, we do a shakeout. 1 day out, we do a primer, low key primer, maybe just some pushes on the runway, pop some med ball. Sometimes we have a little bit of a lift. Morning of, 4 hours early, we do a neuromuscular wake up, and then we go compete. Like it's every time. That's the last few things. So yeah.
What's the neuromuscular wake up look like?
That's a fancy term that I learned from Cliff Revelto for shakeout, get up and move.
Okay, get up and move. Okay.
Yeah, we do some glute activation stuff with the mini band, and we'll do some like hang high pulls and maybe some dumbbell jump squats, get your central nervous system firing, and we always do it 4 hours before competition.
So when you have the first jump is at 9 a.m. You're up at 4 doing this, right?
5.
At 5? Oh yeah,
Yep.
it's my math. Okay. How do you back it up at all with the check-in and the fact internationally with the call room and all that? Do you build that in?
Yeah, great question. Sometimes we have to do it 5 hours early, with building in call times and arrival to the track and all that stuff. So
Oh,
I'd say between 4 and 5 hours early. We've had a couple times where there's international competitions that do start at 9 and that gets rough, but we do it.
yeah,
For the most part though, like we're not going before noon, so it's not that
yeah,
hard. So
that helps. What was
yep.
that whole Times Square experience like?
No, it's unbelievable. Athlos did an unbelievably good job of that. It just was off the charts, one of the coolest environments I've ever been around in track and field. And then it got backed up the next day at Icon Stadium.
Right.
Like it was Tara had no business jumping 713. Like I had to make her train maybe twice a week after Worlds. Like she did not want to do it. I'm like, we gotta hold on for this meet. And it was the environment and the setting and just that atmosphere. Like dude, like her mid mark was bad. It was 56 degrees and she just wanted to put on a show. Like she did it. Like it
She did
was,
it. That's right. I mean, that's like
yeah,
I say, you can't coach that. That's just there, definitely. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
Bazemore, you got a question for us?
Yes, ma'am. What is your coach? What is your I can't say requirement, but what do you say using Tara, for example? What do you want your jumpers to run at 30 to 60, etc.?
Oh yeah. So we catch a lot of everything in my brain and off the top of my head is going to go back into 10-meter fly. And so I have a chart actually. Shoot, I'll show you. Let's talk about it. So, um so in the long jump in particular, this is kind of crazy. So I had a bottle of wine and a warm fire one night and I was creating a PowerPoint presentation, right? Back in the day. And so I have a lot of data with decathletes and long jump, and then a little bit of data with sprinters and long jumper sprinters. And so I can take a 100-meter dash into a 30-meter fly, 30-meter fly into a 10-meter fly, 10-meter fly into meters per second, and then take that meters per second and calculate it to almost exact distance. And I'm almost always within 15 centimeters in the long jump. Like and so long story short, 10 meters per second, if you can run 10 meters per second, one flat for a 10-meter segment, I think you can long jump 740. I think you're fast enough to do that. And that's what I think Tara is right now. In fact, I know that's what she is. Like I think if she puts it together, that's what she can jump. And that the foul measurement of 739,
Yeah,
I think shows that. So um
definitely.
yeah, so for our guys, you know, we've had guys run, in the 10-meter fly actually on the track. I mean, they'll get down to point 84. And so the fast stuff. I think that I haven't measured a true 30-meter fly like in peak season just because I just get antsy. I don't do it. But I think Jarian I want to say his best is 265, I think. But I think he's probably marginally faster than that. Um, yeah. So I mean, if you give me a number, and I can usually kind of figure out what they should be ready to jump. Tara's gotten down to her fastest this last year. I mean, she actually got a couple um on the runway. Got the from 11 to 1. She got it down to 1.0, man, which
Oh
was
wow.
it was crazy. Yeah, but a lot of 101, 102s, in that zone. Yep. I don't
Well,
know if that answers your question. And then we'll do a lot of 20-meter fly stuff too. I probably don't do as much true 30-meter fly as a lot of people do. No.
The reason I ask because I mean everyone knows here I work with other sports also besides track. My
Hmm.
niece, she's a true sophomore. Matter of fact, Jerome keeps asking me about her. She's I have her around right around about a 7.460, but she's like might be a hybrid. So she's 7.4, and I'm not sure. I don't know if she's at 6'5" or 6'6" in the jump. She's just now starting jumps. That's why I'm going to visit Jerome. Um, and so I'm like, he's like, dude, if she gets his this point, like, I need to recruit her. No, but I mean, she's a true sophomore in college, I should say. So right now
Yeah.
I'm trying. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So right now I'm like, okay, there's this chick named Kate Hall I need you to look up. And there's this,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's this other girl named Tiana Bartoletta. You might want to look her up too. So, but
Yeah,
That's
I'd like
awesome.
to know a little bit about that. Well,
Yeah, no kidding. That's
Joy has one last question here to close us out tonight. Joy, do you want to come on unmute? Maybe.
Yes. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, Travis, thanks for being here. And I love that you're recognizing our legend coaches because we have so many people we've learned from. And like I said, there's so many Insta coaches, Scrams coaches, and obviously you're not, but
No.
there's so many. It's like, oh my gosh, you guys, we studied so hard and learned from all the best. And I always like shout out the older people that we've learned from. And hearing you, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, Jerome, Norm Tate. Yeah, just so I mean, that's big props. But anyway, I
Thank you.
really admire how you're coaching all your athletes, and especially I was speaking with my husband about stuff, and we were talking about like the invisible skill. What's your
Oh
invisible
yeah.
skill? I mean, what's you like what I mentioned before, what's your sort of magic, your magic that you sprinkle that makes you different from these other coaches, and what's like with the timing and the posture, stiffness and rhythm that you think is most misunderstood in our event of the long jump, I will say long jumping specifically, and how do you teach it?
Yeah, that's a great coach. Well, who was your coach back in the day? Who coached you?
Don Chu at Cal State Hayward, if you remember
Okay.
Okay.
biometric books. Okay. And
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
my sister was coached by Edric Florial. She was a two-time Olympian, or she is a two-time Olympian in the long jump, Grace Upshaw. And so
Yeah. Gotcha.
I learned a lot from Edric because I was sitting there filming Grace for many years and a part of it too. And so
Sure.
yeah, so I just want to hear, like I said, as a, family of jumpers and coaching, and I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's such an intricate movement, and I don't know if I'm going to do it justice in trying to describe it, but I do think the nuance that, and I don't think there's any magic, right? But just I think a nuance that gets missed is the oscillation of the run.
Yeah.
And so your hips, I don't know if you guys can see me. I can't see myself right now. I'm on camera. Well, so your hips oscillate while you run, right? And
Yeah.
there's this vertical component of the approach where you aren't trying to run faster. You're just trying to maintain at the perfect time, right? And
Mhm.
so that's when you look at like max velocity and like let's say you're running 10 meters per second or right around there. You want you from 11 meters to 6 meters to be around 0.50, and you want 6 meters to 1 meter to be maybe 0.49, right? We're not trying to get faster. We're trying to have the upright sprinting mechanics and that wave of upright sprinting
Mhm.
catch at the right time. And
Yeah.
so it has to be this tall, relaxed, floaty feeling, and not what many people think of this grind max velocity through the board.
Yeah.
And there's elasticity to it that I think gets missed. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but yeah.
No, no,
Yeah.
that's good. No, that's
Wow, that's great. Well, Travis, thank you so much for giving us time tonight because I know I got a lot out of this, definitely. And I definitely will be watching the replay. And for those of you that haven't realized, I am putting these all on YouTube. And so it is under Gold Medal Coaches PACA Calls. And it's a YouTube channel. Brooks's picture is there. Uh,
Mm.
and you can catch this and play it back all over the place. So thank you so much, Travis. Continued good luck and success, because I'm going to be excited to watch those K-State, the Purple Wildcats. Definitely.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I enjoyed it. That was fun. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
Coach.
you.
Good night.